Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Dr. Amantha Imber is an innovation psychologist and founder of Australia's leading innovation consultancy, Inventium. She is also the co-creator of the Australian Financial Review's Most Innovative Companies list. With a PhD in organizational psychology, Amantha has helped companies such as Google, Apple, Disney, Lego, Virgin Australia, Commonwealth Bank, and many others innovate more successfully. Amantha's thoughts have appeared in the Harvard Business Review, the Huffington Post, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Fast Company, and she's the author of 2 best-selling books, The Creativity Formula and The Innovation Formula. In 2016, Amantha was inducted into the Australian Businesswomen's Hall of Fame. Wow. Please welcome Dr. Amantha Imber to the stage.
Hello, good afternoon everybody. So my name's Amantha, which is a bit of an unusual name. It's like Samantha without the S. That's the best way to remember it. So before I get started, I want to ask you guys some questions. So, just by show of hands, who checked their email before 9 a.m. today? Just by show of hands. Hands right up. Okay, that's pretty much everyone. Okay, who checked one of their social media feeds before 9 a.m.? Show of hands, almost everyone. Okay, who's been interrupted by a notification on their phone today? Show of hands, pretty much everyone. Okay, and did anyone spend like any day this month, deliberately crafting what your workday looked like so you can have the best workday ever? Did anyone do that? All right, maybe about 10 of you. Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. Getting a good day's work done is hard. There was some interesting research that I read recently from the University of Southern California, and they were interested in how long could students concentrate on their work before they did a little just check of their email or social feed or something like that. So what these experimenters did, they went into the students' homes. So these were, that's an interesting sound effect. So they went into these students' homes. They were high school, secondary school. Are these terms making sense? I know I've got a weird accent, yeah. And college or university students, so that kind of age group. Experimenters watched them work for 15 minutes, and they tracked at how much through that 15 minutes they took before they got distracted by something. Now, I want to kind of do a survey of the room and see how optimistic we're feeling about this age group and their ability to stay focused. So who thinks that, on average, these students were able to focus for the full 15 minutes? Anyone? No takers on that? Okay. Who thinks it was somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes? One? Okay, wow, not many people for that as well. How about between 5 and 10 minutes? Yeah, okay, all right, that's this, I don't know, maybe a third or half of the room. Who thinks it was less than 5 minutes? Oh, okay, all right, the majority of you. Who's got teenagers living in their home? Yes, okay, you're probably more pessimistic on this one. So what they found is that these students could focus for an average of 6 minutes before they turned their attention elsewhere, which is kind of crazy. Like, how can you study anything when all you can do is concentrate for 6-minute blocks? And we might kind of look at this as adults and go, oh, well, surely we're not that bad. But the research suggests that we are. The research suggests that our attention span is exactly the same as students when it comes to trying to concentrate on work before we get lured away by some distraction. And what research shows is that we spend an average of 4 hours a day on our phone, and half of those hours are spent on the top 5 social platforms like YouTube and Facebook. And then we know in America, the average American spends 4 hours a day watching TV. And so what we've done is we've literally turned distraction into a full-time job. Yet so many of us claim that we're busy and there's not enough time in the day. And for me, when I became, really acutely aware of this problem in my own life, it happened one evening when I was brushing my teeth. And I'm very anal about oral hygiene, and I've got an electric toothbrush, and it goes for 2 minutes, exactly. So I brush my teeth twice a day for 2 minutes. Have we got anyone else that's a little bit anal like me about the oral hygiene stuff? Yeah, okay. Simply for me, it comes from a fear of injections in my mouth. I want to go through this life without fillings. Anyway, it was 6:30 at night, and I was brushing my teeth after dinner, and like 2 minutes, that's a long period of time to not be doing anything. And so I had my phone with me, and I thought I'd scroll through Instagram while I brushed my teeth, just to make time go a little bit more quickly and enjoyably. And then I finished brushing my teeth, and Instagram was kind of hooking me in. So I went to my bed and lay down in bed and just kept on scrolling through Instagram, like looking at some Fitspo images to get really inspired to go to the gym in the morning, because they're just so inspiring, those images. And then I bought a couple of gadgets that I thought would really help improve my life, just had a wild ride of a time for 2 hours. And then it was 8:30, and I looked at the clock, and I couldn't believe that I'd just lost 2 hours to Instagram, and I felt very embarrassed. And I went downstairs to tell my husband what had just happened. And then at that moment, I thought, this cannot ever happen again in my life. So I deleted Instagram from my phone. And so I got rid of that addiction. But what happens when you get rid of one addiction, often another one takes over. And that became email. And so instead of going to Instagram, I'd go to my email on my phone. And what I'd find in the morning, this is a picture of me in the morning. Obviously it's not, I wear glasses. And what I would find is I would start my day bright and early at 5:30, and the first thing I would do is that I would scroll through my inbox to see what messages had come in. And essentially what I was doing is I was setting up my day to react to other people's stuff. And I began reflecting back, like on the 12 months that had been and all these really unhelpful habits that I'd grown in my working life. And I felt like I was capable of achieving so much more compared to those, sort of 12 months that had led up to that Instagram and email addiction moment. And so for the last 2 years, my day job is I run an innovation consultancy, but for the last 2 years, I've been completely obsessed with how could I use my time more wisely, and have been delving into all the science behind it. My background is psychology, so fascinated in terms of why my brain had got like it was and was just not very effective at doing deep, concentrated work. And what I want to share with you are some of the more powerful things that I've found around how I've changed my behavior and how we've worked with other people to change theirs. So what we're going to do now is an experiment. Now, can everyone grab a sheet of paper and a pen? And there's some paper and pens at the back of the room, and maybe, if you look down your row, maybe someone in your row can share with you a sheet of paper and a pen. So I'll give you a moment to grab paper and a pen, and we're going to run an experiment. All right. Now, when you're sitting back at your, desk, whatever you're sitting at, can I get you to fold that sheet of paper in half so that there's, and then unfold it, so you've basically divided it into a top half and a bottom half. All right. Now, what we're going to be doing is this. So I'm going to explain it. Don't start work yet, because I'm going to be timing you guys as to how long this takes. So in a moment, what you'll be doing, on the top half of your sheet of paper, you're going to be writing out the lyrics to Happy Birthday. So I've written them up here for you, in case anyone's been living under a rock this life. And at the bottom half, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be counting down the numbers from 20 down to 5. Okay, but it's not quite as simple as that. What you're going to be doing is you will first start by writing the word happy. Then you're going to go to the bottom half of the sheet of paper and you'll write the number 20. Then you'll go back to the top, you'll write birthday, then you'll write 19, and so on. So you'll be switching between the task at the top and the task at the bottom until you end up with this. Okay, so I am going to be timing you. I'll just open up my stopwatch. And when you finish this task, just raise your hand, keep it raised, and I will stop it when half of you have raised your hand, and that'll be the main score. Okay, on your marks, set, go. Just saw someone's pen run out. You're going to be taking a while. All right, and hands right up high when you've finished. And I'll stop it when about half of you are done. All right, I'm thinking that's probably about half of you. Okay, very good. That took you guys exactly 1 minute to complete that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is flip over your sheet of paper so you're on the blank side. And we are going to be completing that task again, but with one small difference. So what we'll do first is we'll be writing out the lyrics to Happy Birthday. So write that out in full. Once you've done that, then move to the bottom half of the sheet of paper and count down the numbers 20 down to 5, okay? And when you've finished, hands up like before. Ready, set, go. Hands up high when you've done that. Okay. All right, I think that's about half of you. Okay. Does anyone want to guess how long that took? Did someone say 13 seconds? No, maybe 30. 30, 40, 13. Okay, someone did say 13. Okay, so that will be very quick. It was 40 seconds, okay? And just like compare what you've done. Does it look the same? It's like the same output. Yeah? Pretty much the same? Okay, interesting. We will come back to that in a moment. Okay, now let's try something else. What I want you to do, just in your mind, is I want you to think about a pink elephant. Okay, so just imagine a pink elephant. And now, at the same time, keep that pink elephant in your head. I also want you to add up 15 and 8, like at the same time. Okay, that's literally impossible. So it is impossible for our brain to consciously focus on two things at the one time. So, you know, we talk a lot about multitasking. I'm not sure if anyone saw Lauren's presentation. What multitasking is it is simply task switching. It is switching from one task to the other. And what has to happen in our brain every time we switch tasks is basically a two-step process. So the first thing that happens, let's just say we're writing a report and then we do a just check of our email. So what has to happen is firstly, goal shifting goes on in our head. So our brain says, okay, I'm going to drop the goal for writing this report and I'm going to have the goal up. My goal now is to check my email and write and respond to email. And then after we've changed goals in our head, what then happens is rule activation. And so our brain shuts down the rules for how to write a report, and then it opens up the rules for how to read and write and respond to emails. So these two steps go on every single time you switch tasks, like whether it's switching from happy to 20 or switching from report writing to email. And what we know from research from over in the University of Michigan by Professor David Meyer is that task switching, otherwise known as multitasking, makes things take about 40% longer to do. And we basically demonstrated that here today, although you guys are a little bit worse than what the research suggests. You guys took about 50% longer to complete the exact same task, just by completing it in two different ways. So that's kind of scary. Like if you think about it, if you currently, like who currently spends their day switching between tasks? Yeah, you all do. Okay, so if you think about the average working day of 9 to 5, and you're task switching throughout that day, if all you walk away with from this presentation is that you just stop task switching, you become a monotasker, you could achieve the exact same output and go home at about 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon. Like, isn't that crazy? And this is a quote from a book I'll talk about in a moment by Professor Cal Newport. Cal says, if like most people, you rarely go for more than 10 to 15 minutes without a just check of email or Slack or Messenger, you've effectively put yourself in a persistent state of self-imposed cognitive handicap, right? And I'm sure that we're all like guilty of doing the just check. So what we want to do is we want to be a monotasker. And I will add, for anyone that wants the slides or is taking photos of the slides, I'll make a way to share that with you guys, just FYI. So be a monotasker. You will shave hours off your day if this is all you do. Now, I mentioned Cal Newport before, and over the last couple of years where I've been obsessively delving into the research, my favorite book that I've read is this book called Deep Work. And if we've got any Cal Newport fans in the room, anyone that's read Deep Work, a handful of people. Okay, awesome. So the basic premise behind this book, which was published a couple of years ago, is that thanks to all the digital distractions that exist in our work days now, the majority of us, and certainly myself at the time included, find ourselves spending most of our days doing what Newport says is shallow work. So shallow work is work that is non-cognitively demanding. So shallow work involves things in our inbox or whatever messaging platform we are using to communicate with other people in our organization and outside our company. Shallow work are things that someone with a whole lot less training and knowledge could be doing instead of you. And then in contrast, we have deep work. So deep work are things that require deep, uninterrupted, focused periods of time to get done. And what Newport's thesis was is that he said, for most of us, we've forgotten how to do deep work. Like if you are like the average person that is doing a just check of something every 6 minutes, maybe in this presentation you can't even listen for 6 minutes without just doing a little just check of your email or something like that. Like this is not a state where we can achieve deep, focused, important, meaningful work. And for me, I began to wonder, like, how had I let shallow work take over my life? Because it certainly had. I came to the realization that I was doing a whole bunch of shallow work and just simply fitting in little bits of deep work in amongst that. So it comes down to one of the first psychologists that I learned about when I did my 7-year sentence of psychology at university. Do we have any other psych people in? No, not a single person. Oh, one. Excellent, good. So this is a guy called B.F. Skinner, very famous behavioral psychologist. And what Skinner was famous for is putting rats into boxes. So that was kind of the thing that shot him to fame. And what he was trying to do with the rats is he was trying to work out how could he get the rat to press that little lever that you can see in front of the rat. So what could he manipulate to get the rat pressing down on the lever? So what he found is that if you positively reinforced the rat, so Skinner was the guy that came up with the term positive reinforcement, which I'm sure we've all heard, like whenever the rat pressed the lever he was given food, guess what the rat would do? It would press the lever more, thanks to positively reinforcing that behavior. But then things got a little bit interesting, and Skinner was like, well, I wonder what would happen if I didn't give the rat a pellet of food every single time that he pressed the lever. I wonder what would happen if I just did it kind of randomly, like essentially what is called positive random reinforcement or an intermittent reinforcement schedule. So who thinks that, like, if you're not getting that reward every time, who thinks the rat is going to press the lever less? Because it's basically not guaranteed a reward. Does anyone think the rat might do it less? Handful of people. Okay, who thinks that the rat might do it more if it's not getting a reward every time? Absolutely. So this is kind of counterintuitively what Skinner found. The less the rat was rewarded, just doing it on a random schedule, the more ferociously the rat pressed the lever. And it's kind of interesting that we're in the center of the random reinforcement universe. Because this is the exact principle that this operates on. And then if you think about it to that thing that sits in your pocket, we've kind of got the same sort of schedule going on here. We never know when that next great email or piece of news or message is going to come from. We never know when we're going to get that next like on that really cute picture of our newborn baby, right? So really what this device kind of should look like is this. That is essentially what we've got going on. And obviously, like companies around the world that are trying to fight for our attention employ attention engineers who are experts at getting us hooked on these things. And this is why shallow work is highly addictive work. You know, like who can relate to this? Yes, absolutely. So what we need to do to get deep, focused work done, we need to develop a deep work routine, something that can become habitual. So the first thing that we need to be thinking about, love a good formatting issue, most people have their highest cognitive functioning 2 hours after they're fully awake. But not everyone, and I want to talk about this for a moment. So who's heard of the idea of chronotypes? Is this okay, a handful of people. All right, so what chronotypes is it's ways of classifying ourselves based on our natural daily energy rhythms, our circadian rhythms. And so what we know, like who's a morning person here? You know who you are. Like you didn't have coffee this morning because you were like buzzing. So that kind of works out about right. So we know that about 15% of the world are what we call larks. So these are people that don't need an alarm to go off to wake up at 5 in the morning, right? These are the people that night owls, which I'll talk about in a moment, find highly annoying, okay? So larks. Then we've got owls at the other end of the continuum, and owls account for about 21% of the population. So who gets their best work done at night? Okay, all right, so again, sort of roughly representing the statistics here. So these are the people that the corporate world is basically designed to annoy and piss off and get the worst out of, right? And then everyone else is a middle bird within that normal distribution. So for those of us that are larks and middle birds, we get our best work done before lunchtime, right? And that's, you know, that's like, that's good. Like, you know, work expects us to be there between 9 to 5 at most workplaces, but then owls peak in the evening. Like owls, you know, owls shouldn't be starting their deep focused work until, you know, maybe 4 or 6 p.m. in the day, right? Because that's when you guys get your best work done. So the first thing to think about when it comes to deep work and when are you going to set your deep work is that you need to deep work to your chronotype. And something that I'll give you guys access to at the end of the presentation is a survey. So you can actually work out where on the chronotype continuum you set. Because you should know and your boss should know. This is such important information that we design our work schedules according to our natural energy levels rather than fighting against them, as most workplaces do. So then comes the question, where should you do your deep work? Okay, so who works in an open plan office here? Almost everyone, okay. So what we know is, not surprisingly, open plan offices kill deep work because you're constantly being interrupted. And yet the irony of open plan offices, and this came from some research that came out a couple of years ago, because we think open plan, well, that's great because it's good for collaboration. But actually, face-to-face collaboration decreases by about 75% in open plan offices, largely because we don't want to have a conversation when everyone else can hear it, and email and instant messenger increase by about sort of 65 and 72% respectively, which is kind of crazy. So if you work in an open plan office, you need to remove yourself from that office to get deep work done. So what you want to do is find your focus place and block out all distractions. Like for me, I work in an open plan office, largely because I didn't come across this research until after we had designed the office a few years ago. So for me, I've got like a rotating schedule of about 3 different cafes where I won't be interrupted and I can do deep work in amongst the white noise of the cafe, which I love. Now next, you need to book deep work into your diary. So I've heard like a few presenters over the conference talk about manager versus maker time. For me, I'm both a manager and a maker, and I imagine like have we got quite a few people in the room that are managers and makers? Yes, excellent. So for you guys, it's like you will know that your diary probably looks like, you know, can look like a reactive mess because meetings take over the life of a manager. So what we need to do is we need to protect the time that aligns with our chronotype, that aligns with when we're going to do our best deep work, and actually block that out in our diary. But when it comes to what to work on, I'm imagining because you're in the productivity stream, you're probably to-do list people or have a Trello board that is your to-do list. Like, we all just give me a nod, like if you're like, yep, to-do lists is my religion. Okay, but the big problem with to-do lists, like do most of you when you've got a to-do list, is it project-based, like you'll have a project and here are all the things to get done, or maybe you've got the one mega to-do list, like can everyone sort of relate to that sort of idea? Yes, I was exactly the same until I realized, like, the thing about how our brain works when it picks what task to do is that our brain goes for the easiest thing to do because it's addicted to getting that progress hit, right? So if you've got like email blah or develop new product strategy for blah, like what are you gonna do at 3 o'clock on Monday? You're gonna write the email because you'll get a quick little progress hit and you'll be feeling great. So a trick to dramatically improving how effective to-do lists are is to break it up into deep work and shallow work. So whenever something goes into your to-do list, have a think about, is this something that requires deep focused concentration for like an hour or more? Or is this something that I can do pretty easily and will not require any kind of deep thinking energy? So by splitting your to-do list up, it means that when you're doing deep work, you can go to your deep work list. And when you're not doing deep work, you can do all your other shallow work. Now, that's all well and good, but as Oscar Wilde said, like, you know, you can resist everything except temptation because the things that distract us are bloody tempting, right? And what we know is that willpower is a limited resource. Like, for every one of us, it is a muscle that when we wake up, it's like a fully charged battery, but over the course of the day, our willpower gets eroded. So here are just some quick tips for how to rely less on your willpower. So firstly, go full screen. It kind of baffles me that every single software application has this feature, but it rarely gets used. Like, most of us don't work in full screen, but if you can just make a habit of when you're doing something, work in full screen, it visually eliminates all other distractions. The second thing I'd encourage you to do is to think about, or even look at the statistics in screen time if you're an iPhone user, and I think Android have something similar, to which app on your phone is hijacking your attention the most in the most unhelpful way. And then delete it, right? So just delete it for a week and see what happens. Like, if your life falls apart through getting rid of Facebook, like if all your friends disown you and you know, you really miss all the pictures of people holidaying in Hawaii, then, you know, by all means, like, put Facebook back. But for me, I found through deleting apps, like literally removing the temptation so I don't have to exercise willpower, it completely changed my behavior. And finally, who's come across this wonderful piece of software, Freedom? Okay, this is my favorite piece of software that I've found when it comes to eliminating the use of willpower to get stuff done. So what Freedom does, freedom.to, is it blocks you out of websites and software applications for periods of time, like whenever you tell it to. So you literally can't get on. And therefore, because you're being blocked out, you're not having to exert willpower. So you can keep your willpower stored up for other stuff. Very, very useful. So we've talked about three things. So we talked about monotasking. And hopefully, like, you know, I imagine this is not new. I imagine we weren't coming into this room thinking, oh, but isn't multitasking still really good? No, we know that. But I found for me, it wasn't until I actually experienced how slow multitasking made me that I actually changed my behavior. So hopefully, you know, you've had a moment today where you're like, multitasking, really not that good. Deep work, we've talked about the importance of setting up a deep work routine for yourself. And also, we've talked about how you can just eliminate the need for willpower and get rid of some of those distractions without having to exert willpower. So, a few things for what now. As I mentioned, there's like a few resources that I'd love to share with you guys. The first one is just a blatant plug. So I host a podcast called How I Work, where I sort of started with the theory of, like, how is it that there are some people in the world, like really, you know, successful people that have achieved so much with their life, yet they've got the same amount of time as we do. So I've done interviews like with people like Adam Grant and Matt Mullenweg and Amanda Palmer and sort of pretty diverse folk about how they are structuring their day. So check that out if that's of interest. Now, in terms of resources, resources, either message me through the app with your email or hop onto this URL here and just pop your email address in. And there's a few things I want to send over. So firstly, the slide deck. Very happy to share the slides. I'm very happy for you guys to share them with anyone you think could benefit. Nextly, a deep work map, just to allow you to map out those things we talked about and actually get deep work done. Third, a chronotype assessment. So this is one of the official chronotype assessments that exists to work out where do you sit, and I would recommend that you get your team to do this as well so you can structure your work days accordingly. And finally, like if you want more tips, because this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the things that I've learned around how to improve my workday, there's 10 tips in this particular ebook that I put together for you guys. So hop onto that link today, because we do all the getting all the email addresses tonight, and I'll get that to you guys tomorrow. So the final thing that I want us to do is I want us to actually, make some commitments, because often, if we don't commit to changing our behaviour, like it doesn't generally change. So can I get everyone standing up for this last little bit? And in America, like, what do you guys do when you're making commitments? Like, you put your hand on your heart, or like go like that, or hand on the Bible, or something like that. What do we do? Do your choice of whatever it means to make a serious commitment. Whatever. Okay, and I'm going to put up some stuff, and I'll get you to repeat after me when you see this. Okay, so first thing, I promise to stop making things take 40% longer by multitasking. Okay, I promise to stop being a shallow worker and instead prioritize deep work. And finally, I promise to stop doing just checks and lock myself out of temptations with tech hacks. Wonderful, wonderful. Take a seat. Take a seat. Excellent. Now, before we have like a few minutes for questions, I want to finish with this quote that I love from Jim Rohn, quite a famous entrepreneur. He says, "Time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time." So I wish you guys the best of luck of using your time wisely. Thank you.